excellence and motivation. Always be a champ.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Great Employees Matter, the podcast that focuses on employees helping. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Great Employees Matter, the podcast that focuses on employees helping. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Great Employees Matter, the podcast.
All right, go ahead, Jimmy.
Hi, everybody. So today, this week's guest, we have a surprise for you because this is the first time we've actually had a real live celebrity on the show. And so our guest for this episode is Kim Couture from MMA fame. Kim was a former MMA fighter. She retired in 2015, I believe. She has just a diverse background. She's been a team barrel racer, or a team roper and a barrel racer, and she's been a deputy sheriff. She's worked at Mandalay Bay as a bartender. She worked for Steve Wynn.
Never a bartender, food and beverage manager.
Ah, okay. So she has a diverse employment background. She's also an entrepreneur, and we're going to talk about all of her story today. So welcome to the show, Kim. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
With that, I'm going to turn it over to Kobe because he likes to be in charge. Take over from the very beginning.
That's not true, but thank you for stalling for me as I was going through that hiccup in the back and changing the screen. Just real quick, Kim, can you see the screen?
It's just color.
It's just color. Oh, I got you covered. Don't worry about it. But welcome to the show. We appreciate you coming. And my portion of it is I like to start from the beginning. You've done a lot of things. You were a fighter. You were in charge of a lot of big businesses. What was your childhood like to start you on those types of paths? Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
Well, I grew up on a big ranch in Colorado, and grew up in the rodeo world, and we trained horses, and we had cattle. Kind of grew up away from civilization. I always used to ask. They used to get sick of me asking if there was other kids on the planet because I never saw any.
Wow.
It was just me and my animals and, my family that lived on the ranch. And so I was independent from the get-go and always an animal lover to this day. I just can't get enough of them. So, independent and hardworking, up at the crack of dawn and work all day, all night. And, my parents really pushed me and got good grades.
And where was this place that you grew up in the rural area again? Where was this?
Well, our family's ranch isn't even really in a town. It's up in the middle of the Rockies. And I was born in a small town called Walsenburg. And we moved to a bigger town when I had to start school to Pueblo, Colorado. But yeah, our ranch was up pretty far up there. The closest town probably would have been Walsenburg or Aguilar.
And so what about school? Was it where you say you didn't have kids? How did you get your schooling up there?
No. We moved. We moved to
Pueblo
when it was time for me to start school. So I did my first 5-6 years on the ranch, and then I would spend every summer until I left home on the ranch working.
Okay. And what type of work was that?
Moving cattle, cutting, baling hay. It's just all farm work, irrigating, mowing the fields, mowing the lawn.
Okay. So
taking care of all my animals.
All physical manual labor, stuff that I hate. So I got it. So now let me ask you this. What about your schooling? What was your schooling like?
Well, when we moved to Pueblo, it was pretty normal, but I was kind of the black sheep. I didn't really understand any slang, or I didn't understand anything that any of the kids were talking about because it was my first interaction with kids. So I was just quiet, and people always thought there was something wrong with me because I was very independent from a very young age. Just kept to myself as a straight A student. I got perfect attendance. I was little goody two shoes, but my parents really pushed me hard, and my mom's gone really far in her education. She was a teacher and she had her master's degree, and my dad was an agricultural engineer. So they were very hardworking people. So
No, I love all of this.
Pass it along.
Yeah, no, I love all of this. So tell me a little bit about your first job or your first employment.
When I turned 16, my dad took me to get a checking account at, before it was Wells Fargo, it was Norwest Bank, and took me down and get my first little checking account. And right away wanted to teach me how to save money, got my savings account open too. And the woman that helped us at the bank was so beautiful. She looked like Snow White, just so elegantly dressed, and her makeup and her hair and her nails, everything was perfect. And I was just mesmerized by her. And the way she talked, I was like, Dad, I think this is the real Snow White.
Wow.
Like, she's amazing. And I just blurted out. I said, I want to work here. I said, what could I do to possibly work here? And she goes, how old are you again? I said, listen, I'll do anything. And she goes, come with me. And she took me back to meet the president, which was a woman. And I met her and I said, listen, I'll do anything she was beautiful too. I'm like, what is going on in this bank? So I go, I'll do anything to just learn how to be like you and learn banking. And they hired me. They gave me $5 an hour, and I was a little gopher for them.
Wow, that's awesome. So you just really went in, got your first job, did that thing.
Yep.
So tell me what ranch life and living, like that in a rodeo, because you've done some pretty amazing things that we're going to get into. How did that shape your mindset in order to be able to start attacking those types of things? Like, when did you get interested in MMA?
Oh, that was way years later.
Oh, really?
So, rodeo life, just farm life, you're up at the crack of dawn, and you just work. You don't know any different. My grandparents were hardworking. My parents were hardworking. You don't see them sitting around watching TV. Everybody's working constantly. You have to in order to keep up. So I was always involved in sports. I played volleyball, basketball, track. I was also an artist. And we trained horses. So I was always working with new colts, and we had an arena at our house. So we would rope every day. And I have to get all the colts ridden and get the lawn mowed and get dinner made and do the homework. And, I never had enough time back then, and I still don't have enough hours in the day.
Yeah, I think we all fit in that same category, right? So I can ask you questions forever because, I'm very, very investigative like that and want to know everything, but I think I better share and see if anybody else wants to ask some questions.
I'll jump in before Lloyd. I'm fascinated by the whole rodeo piece. I love team roping. I love barrel racing. I can't ever figure out how you can get a horse to turn on a dime like that and come around a barrel. But I think what I love most is those little 3 and 4 year old kids riding sheep.
Yeah, mutton busting.
That was
Yeah.
Mutton busting.
I'm such a city boy.
Yeah.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
See, when you grow up on the ranch, you have to invent new things to do. So you get pretty creative.
I'm going to tell you guys, you can say the same thing about the ghetto, but go ahead, Jimmy.
So before I get to asking how and when you came to Vegas, can you share with us how your experience in your youth, both with the rodeo circuit, with being raised on a farm, and being introduced to thought society after you got to school, how that helped shape you to become the person that you are today? Because that's the foundation, right? So if you can share some of that with us.
I think it's actually, looking back, very interesting how it happened, because I look at how I was raised and so sheltered from everything. Fast forward to all the things that I've done now, and it's amazing that I caught on to society the way that I did. And you definitely go through hardships for years in that sense. School was hard for me. I was bullied. I was picked on. And back then it wasn't like it is today. I was bullied by my teachers, and I was quiet and it just didn't fit in with anybody else. And, I had my first grade teacher that terrorized me, and she used to want to put me in special ed. And, she would ask me if I was retarded in front of the whole class. And what that did was it got the rest of the kids, it made it okay for the rest of the kids to tease me. And we all rode the same school bus. So then I'd get chased home and bullied and tortured every single day by the kids. They thought it was okay because the teacher would pick on me constantly. I grew up very poor. So I didn't have a lot of school supplies. So I would borrow the teacher on the first day, I'd borrow the teacher's crayons, and I used to like to trace, and then color the inside. Well, she yelled at me for wearing down her brand new crayons and again told me I was retarded and she was going to put me in special ed. And, you learn a lot of things back then about survival and mental toughness and trying to understand where everybody was coming from, because I didn't grow up the way that these other kids grew up. And it was good for me. At the time I hated it, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody likes that. But it really made me just so tough. I'm really not affected by anything at this point. So learning that early on, and then seeing how strong my parents were. They were very, very smart. My dad was a perfectionist. Like I said, he was an agricultural engineer, and everything he did, even at home, everything had to be perfect. And he talked about just how perfect, you don't do things, half, what. And, we built our arena, we built our corrals, we did our deck, and we did the patio in the front, and we did our own roofing, and everything we did. I was my dad's best friend. I was right there with him the whole way. So I know how to weld. I know how to do everything. He raised me like a boy and just taught me about, doing it the best way possible and redoing it if you made a mistake, because you'll always know it's there. So you better start over. Mm-hmm. And then fast forward to my casino years working for Steve Wynn. He was such a perfectionist too. He was quality over quantity. And I really admired that. So it kind of reinforced some of the stuff that my dad had taught me.
Really? That negative, the bullying and growing up in that, it's awful. I mean, it's horrible, but it is character building.
It is. It's. I wouldn't change it. Like I said, you hate it at the time, but looking back, it just really gave me a different perspective. Going in, and the people that have met me at different phases of my life. When I had millions of dollars and all these companies, everybody thinks my life is perfect. Nobody knows my history, or people that knew me back then thought I'd never amount to anything. And then look at me now, you know what I mean? So it's interesting to see all the different perspectives and the way that people treat you. And, none of them are correct, of course. None of it's right, but it's made me who I am today. So I can share those stories.
Yeah. And do you have no siblings?
I have one brother. He's 7 years younger than me.
Oh, okay.
And he's a team roper professionally. Yeah.
Well, I asked that because it's not, I think it's probably atypical in your situation, because oftentimes ranchers and farmers end up having larger families so that they can all pitch in and help take care of the ranch or the farm. So your parents obviously didn't do that for whatever reasons, which means that you probably had to carry a bigger share of the workload than what would be the norm.
I tease my brother. He had it easy. He was 7 years later. My parents were established by the time he was planned, and they were established, and they started making good money. And, they were young when they had me. My mom had me when she was 20, and they were still in college. So they were still on the struggle bus, when they had me. So things were hard, and I just had to, keep up. My brother, he was playing Nintendo and got the new little Jordans, and, didn't have to do anything he didn't feel like doing, so we definitely had a different upbringing.
And then after you got out of school, how did you end up being a deputy sheriff?
I had already been married and divorced. I had 2 kids and single mom. I needed to find something that had great benefits, flexible hours. In my town of Pueblo, there wasn't a lot to pick from. And the sheriff at the time, I believe it was his niece, she played sports with me. And so he's like, we're getting ready to test for the sheriff's department. After you graduate, you should really consider it. I started thinking about it. I'm like, hey, I could do that. I'm a tomboy. I can handle myself, So that was the best option at the time.
And what did you learn from that experience that ended up affecting the rest of your work life?
Well, that's a whole nother world that people don't realize. They operate on different rules. I worked in the jail for 2 years while I was going through the academy, and then before I went to patrol. And so you got to see those are two different worlds in itself. Because I grew up sheltered, I didn't hang around kids that did drugs. I didn't know there was gangs in my town. I didn't even know anything about drugs or gangs or.
Wow.
Meanwhile, we lived off of I-25, which is the drug capital highway of the universe. It goes from Mexico all the way up to Canada. So yeah, it was a big gang and a big drug town that I had no idea that even existed.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's two extreme sides to my life. And it's like, at that point in time, I think they collided, and it was like, oh my gosh, this world's a bigger place than I thought it was. Yeah.
So it had to be eye-opening and shocking.
Yes.
Right. Since you hadn't been exposed to it before. If there was something that you learned either in the academy or on the street as you were patrolling, what would that be that helped you survive in Las Vegas?
I'm very street smart now, but I never let even law enforcement, I never let the bullies, I never let anything change me. God's always been number one in my heart. And I grew up with strong grandparents that really enforced that. And like I said, growing up very independent, I was always confident, no matter how much I got beat down. It never fazed me. It's like water off a duck's back. So I like to sit back and observe everything and just take it in and process it myself. And I think the way that I've learned how to process things is very, very positive. And coming to this town, I guess a little bit of the naivety when I first got here is trusting the higher ups, working in the casino business, and they treated me so good and they took me in. Then you realize down the road, a lot of the behind the scenes environment. And, this town will eat you up and spit you out if you're not careful. So I'm very strong in my standards, my moral compass. It has never been shaken, whether I was on, the Colorado side of things or over here in Sin City side of things. I can't be, guided into doing anything that isn't right. So, and I shoot straight, I tell it like it is, and I'm really not afraid of anybody or anything. So just being strong, and nobody has ever been able to control me. And I work hard, I'll outwork everybody, and I do the right thing. So I'm kind of a little force.
Yeah, I bet you are. So did that inner strength come, obviously you're faith-based, so some of it came from there. Some of it had to come from your parents. Some of it is innate in you, right? So how much of that inner strength was through parental education versus just you being you?
I'd say my grandpa was a big, powerful force in my life. He was, the greatest man I think that's ever walked this planet. He served in the war. He had a Purple Heart. His whole battalion got attacked, and he carried two of his best friends through crazy terrain, only for them to die later. And he was the kindest, nicest human being and the hardest worker. And just watching him, I admired him so much. I love spending time with him. I love my parents too, and they were great, but my grandpa was just so special. And he always said, whether it's a person, place, or thing, you always leave them better off when you leave than you found them. So that just always stuck with me, because I'd watch it. He was my example. I would spend the summers back on the ranch and just watch how he dealt with people. And knowing what he had been through, he wouldn't tell war stories to anybody but me, because I would sit there as a favorite pastime and read in the encyclopedias. And I would ask a million questions. And my family told me, they're like, you're the only one that he'll talk to about this, because I was 20 question Kim. I just couldn't learn enough. And that was another thing. Him and my dad were always big on learning. If anything that I could ever pass on to you, they used to say, fall in love with learning. Doesn't matter what age you are. Like there's just so much out there, and just keep learning and just fall in love with it.
You speak our language. With that, let me turn it over to Lloyd because he has great questions every week.
Hi, Kim. Nice to see you again.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you about the name Sugar Free, and you kind of touched on that a little bit. But for the audience who didn't get to hear us discuss it, can you tell them how that came about?
Well, a lot of people assume that I don't eat sugar, but I assure you I eat a lot of that. Not a lot, but yeah, we were training in the gym one day and someone asked a question. And, there are some people that ask a question and they don't really want to know the answer. And I'm pretty direct. So I just said it like it was, and it was fight related. And I can't remember specifically what it was, but everybody goes, wow, gee, Kim, way to sugarcoat that. And one of the other coaches goes, I don't know if I can cuss on the show, but they're like, Kimmy, don't sugarcoat shit. Kimmy is sugar free. And I was new in the fight game. So like, that is your nickname for sure.
I love that. We spend so much time talking about the importance of communication, because communication is so important within the workforce and also within life in general. So many things happen because of miscommunication. And I'm like you. I don't sugarcoat anything. I tell it like it is. But I do find absolutely. But I do find that I have to temper what I say sometimes depending upon the audience. And I find that, of course, especially to be true in the employment situation. I can't tell somebody who works for me everything that I really think about what they're doing. HR will have a field day. And I'm just wondering how you manage to navigate both worlds. One world where you say anything that's on your mind, and other times when you may have to temper what you're thinking.
Well, it's funny. I would say that's the advantage of having the upbringing that I had, having my two worlds collide. Sitting back and paying attention and learning people's body language and learning, always trying to put myself in their shoes and where they're coming from. The time or the place, and just being grounded and paying attention to your surroundings. It's very important. Communication is my biggest thing ever. And whether I was, in the gym, pretty much anything goes. You can say and do whatever you want. I'm around a bunch of sweaty, cussing, nasty dudes, right? I was in law enforcement. I came from that. The rodeo world's the same way. You're drinking a beer and just talking shit with the guys. That's kind of been my whole life. But at the same point, growing up with those beautiful bankers who taught me the beginning of my workforce, and seeing how elegant and beautiful and classy and how they talked, I adapted that side too. And it's important, depending on who you're talking to be relatable. If you're talking to someone and you're seeing them, their eyes gloss over, you already lost them. So trying to be relatable in every scenario with every person that comes in front of me. That's very important, whether I've been a fighter, a commentator, a boss, a mother, a coach. It's very important to capture their attention and keep them focused on you. And if you can tell that you're starting to lose them, or they're losing their attention span, you either do something to get it back, or you end the conversation. We'll talk about this at another time. So it's definitely paying attention. And I think that's where honestly most people miss the boat, whether you're a boss or what, anybody. Communication is a big struggle, especially these days, because everybody's so distant from each other. Everybody can just send a text or cancel at the last minute. And I feel like the integrity is gone, and the human connection, of course, is lacking.
My biggest complaint is that there's no tone in email. Somebody sends you a text, and if there's two different meanings, you have to hope that you're guessing the right one.
Yes.
And that's where communication and saying what's on your mind becomes critical.
Yeah, I use a lot of times I'll put to clarify, I'll put that in my text or my email. And any questions, please, don't hesitate to call me. I'm a big fan of just talking in person or picking up the phone. Doesn't matter what time you call me, I'll usually answer, unless I'm coaching where I can't, answer my phone. Or I'll call you right back. I try really hard because I get bombarded sometimes like everybody else. But yeah, communication is key for every topic that we've just discussed, everything. It's the most important thing. And keeping that human connection alive where everybody tries to distance themselves right now.
Well, my partners require me that I ask at least one question on the topic. So we've just answered that question and now we can get it out of the way. And now we're free to talk about whatever we want to. So totally disregarding the topic or all of the reasons why you're there. If you take money out of it, what job that you had was the most enjoyable? Because I love horses and barrel racing and roping always seemed like it would be fun to me. Working in a bank would be great, especially if they would give out samples. Uh, Working in the casino industry, oh my gosh, a lot of fun. I'm old enough to remember before everything was computerized. What was, if I take money out of it, what was the most enjoyable job for you?
Number one, I love being with animals. I love training. I love training people. I love training animals. I've got dogs now. I love training and coaching and guiding. I loved when my kids were still with me when they were young. I loved teaching them everything. I would take them in the kitchen and, teach them how to cook. Both of my kids are chefs now, not legitimately chefs. They're both in the medical field, but if they cook for me, I'm looking at it like my food always tastes amazing, but theirs has the presentation and it looks beautiful too. So between the medical field and that, I know I'll be taken care of when I, get old.
I'm just trying to figure out how it went at the parent teacher conference. The teacher tells you something that the kid's doing wrong. You go home and you tell the kid, hey, spoke to the teacher. She says you got to correct this or you got to correct that. And the kid looks at you and says, Mom, you choke people out for a living. I just can't imagine how that conversation went.
My parenting was very different. And, I got a lot of criticism from my family and friends in Colorado. They were like, why would you move to Sin City with young kids? And, they didn't like the way that I did things. And out of the entire family, my kids are doing the best. They make a lot of more money. They make the most money out of the entire family. They're independent. They moved out at 18. They got scholarships that paid for their college. So I don't say anything, but
well, you're saying something now.
I was very strict, and with everybody else too. My son would get in trouble for having his phone. He'd get chewed out when he got home, but at the same point, he would get, I don't want to say bullied, but he would get in arguments with his history teacher because I didn't agree with what the teacher was teaching. And the history teacher wanted me to come in for a parent teacher conference. I'm like, I don't think you want me in there. And I laid it out for him. I'm like, you're wrong. You're wrong. You're changing the history and the way that you're teaching. This isn't the way that children need to learn. And I had a million issues with this guy. And the year after my son graduated, turns out that the teacher got fired for having a relationship with one of the students. So I had him peg. See what I mean about reading people? I had him peg.
It would have been awesome if you arrested him.
Yeah.
Listen. Oh, hot hair. I have a funny story for you.
Okay.
How much time you guys got?
Let's go. Let's go.
I was training with a buddy up at Nellis Air Force Base. They have an incredible gym. I was just enjoying my workout, just glad to be there. And my son calls me and says, Mom, they're locking us down. There's a school shooter. Not even in the school. There was a shooter outside the school. They didn't know who the guy was. And I hang up. And he called me right back and I didn't answer because I was gathering my things and running out the door. And he texts me and he goes, Mom, I know you're on your way over here. He goes, please don't do anything to embarrass me. I don't want to end up on the news. And he was right. I lived in, I think, Southern Highlands at the time, and I was up at Nellis Air Force Base, and he was up at Palo Verde in Summerlin. So I think I did that whole thing. Well, back then we didn't have the traffic we have now. I think I did that whole thing in a half an hour. I was up at that school.
Wow,
that's awesome.
Wow, that really is.
FAFO, you know that. With that
oh yeah.
I'm happy to keep going, or Kobe, I can throw it back to you if you've got a couple of things you want to ask.
I actually do have a couple of things that I do want to ask Miss Kim.
Yes.
You've had an incredible journey. I mean, rodeo. We haven't even dived into your MMA. I want to dive into that too. But thinking about all of the stuff that you've done, and was there a moment that changed you or that shaped you the way you do things? Like something challenging that happened to you that made you turn into the person that you are today?
I would have to say going through my divorce with my ex-husband, Randy, we're still great friends to this day, but there was, several years there where it wasn't. And it really crushed me. Being married to him, I felt like all my dreams had come true. He was my best friend. We opened several very successful businesses together. We kind of rode the wave of MMA going mainstream. We were both fighters. We were, the iron that sharpens iron, and yin and yang. And I never saw that coming. So it destroyed me. I would say for a good 5 years, I wouldn't leave my house, and I was still fighting. I was taking fights, and I don't even remember being there. I was definitely in the worst case depression that you could possibly have, and trying to figure out what just happened, because we had an amazing 6 years, and everything was great. We got along great. We never fought. We were just, I thought, the perfect couple. So that really hit me hard. And because we were in the public eye and we were so big in MMA at the time, everybody wanted to cover the story. There was no privacy. And because he was the very famous one and started to do movies, everybody left me and was still hanging on to his coattails. So everybody, the friends that I had before I even met him, dropped me so they could go swing from his coattails. And it was something hard that I had to go through alone. And you kind of see everybody stab you in the back at the same time for no good reason, which 3 years later, they all came back and apologized. And I'm big on forgiveness. I accepted their apology. I forgive them. You'll never get over that hurt. But, me and Randy are great friends again. He just recently had a terrible accident, and I'm one of the first calls to him. And I went and spent some time in the hospital with him. I'll always be there for him. There's mad respect that we have for each other, the integrity and what kind of, athletes and people we were. What happened to us was unfortunate, but I think, time goes on and people have regrets and you learn from that. But because I went through that 5-year depression, that was a lot of time to think. And I guess being a fighter, the great thing about it is you train every day to survive somebody trying to kill you, basically. You're locked in a cage and you're fighting to survive in there. So when life hits you hard, like it hits all of us, I don't know anybody that life hasn't hit hard, it teaches you how to fight back. So when you go into that cage, you are already prepared for everything that you could possibly see in there. So you kind of take that attitude and you apply it to life. And it's different circumstances, different generations, but you look back, I've had so many different chapters of my life, and it's kind of all the same story. It's just a different opponent. So it's definitely something that I pass on to my people that I train every day, and they're just regular, working people. They're not athletes or anything, but I train them like fighters. My camp is called Kim's Fight Fit. So they're regular guys and they train like fighters. And a lot of that is the mentality that I teach them.
We're going to save that for shameless self plugs. But I got one more question. How do you train your mind to keep showing up when it gets tough in business, in life, or anything that you do? When things get challenging like it did for you, and you said you were in a dark place for 5 years. Mm-hmm. How do you train your mind to get yourself through that? Because I know a lot of people that are in turmoil in their life right now. It could be finances, job, relationship, and 5 years is a long, long time to, have something affect you like that. How do you get through that?
I think that 5 dark years, my mind was still strong. It was my heart that was shattered. And I think when you feel like you found somebody that answered all your prayers and then they disappoint you on the way that happened, it's that much harder when it's in the public eye. It was a lonely, humiliating, ordeal. People were very invasive and intrusive into your life when you just want to be left alone. And I went through a period of time where you can't trust anybody because everybody had an ulterior motive. And the people that I thought were my closest friends, like my buddies that I had before I even met Randy, were gone. They were his friends now. So just feeling that devastation on so many levels, and losing your marriage, losing your businesses, your gym, your coaches, your training partners, I lost everything. And I worked so hard for it. And I just walked away. In court, I just signed off on everything. I just walked away. I wasn't going to fight. I wasn't going to fight for my half or anything. I just bounced, and spent those 5 years thinking logically through everything and trying to understand that. And I think, my relationship with God and my faith just kept me positive, even though I was in that dark place. It was like my brain had to help my heart heal, and still not hold bitterness, understanding that people that go through tragic events or devastation like that, they get stuck in quicksand and they hold on to it, and they don't even reach out their hand for somebody to pull them out. They stay in that quicksand for years. And so it was me getting myself out of the quicksand and putting myself back together. I didn't have any help from anybody else, and nor could anybody help me. I don't see how anybody else could have done anything. It was my relationship with God that got even stronger at that time. And like I said, I was still fighting. I was still functioning. I would have to eat. I would have to go to practice, and then I'd cry all the way home.
Wow.
and it was just going through that I look back and I'm like, wow, I didn't think I was ever going to survive it. And now I look back and I'm like, that was a pretty changing time for me, because it really just showed me who I am. It built my confidence even more, because I'm like, wow, if I can get through that,
That's what the tough times do. The tough times really show you who you are and what you're made of. And I always say, like when I'm talking to youth, I tell them, you're going through whatever challenge you're going through now. But if you were talking to me today, look back through every challenge that you went through. You're 100% at overcoming everything that's been thrown at you since birth. But we don't never stand on that, right? So toughness and compassion, can they coexist in leadership?
Yeah. And people turn to God when they have nothing. And I'm one of those people since I was little that goes out and sits quietly and listens to the birds and talks to God daily, just like, what's up? What you doing, God? Like, what you working on today? I'm just chilling with God every day. And I guess it was from growing up alone. And so strengthening my faith meant understanding that I had to learn forgiveness, because I was so angry and I was so mad at all the people that disappointed me, all that hurt, all that unnecessary pain, the lack of loyalty, rumorville. Neither one of us ever spoke bad about each other. He didn't, I didn't. So when there's no answers, people fill in the blanks themselves, and you're in the public eye. So everything on the internet was just stories and craziness. And I'm like, wow, here I came from no civilization, growing up poor in the middle of the mountains, to this, and I just kind of, I've had so many chapters here. It's been a lot to work through. I guess I take my time and think logically. And it's like, what would Jesus do? How would he want me to handle this? And, forgiving all those people, accepting their apologies, and treating them with kindness and fairness. Even now, when I run into them, I'm just the same old me that they knew before all that happened. And I think that's really thrown people for a loop too, because they're like, wow, people that I went to high school with, and, people in my family, I've never changed. But it's a lot of work. It's a lot of private, personal, in the dark work on yourself. It's called that shadow work, and working through your problems and then having a positive solution.
You have no idea the power of your words today. They're very impactful, and I'm sure I can speak for the group. We appreciate you, Jimmy.
Well, I'm not crying.
Almost. I can hear you over there. I can hear you over there sniffling,
when
bro.
you started talking about your grandfather, your tribute to your grandfather brought tears to my eyes.
I'm trying to choke them back too. And then today happens to be the 3rd year anniversary of when my dad died. So if I've sounded a little choked up telling these great stories,
Okay. Well,
Yeah,
on a
no.
lighter note, then, given that you, Randy, and others arguably helped build the MMA, did Dana White share any of the 400 million that you made when he sold it with you?
Darn it, I didn't make that list.
Dana, that's
Dana-
wrong.
Dana's been a good friend to me too. He was one of the people that reached out to me after the divorce and checked on me.
Okay.
He had heard through the grapevine that I walked away and didn't take anything. And he was like, "Are you crazy?" He's like, "You built that. You built him. You made a brand out of him. And why would you do that?" He goes, I don't know any woman on earth that would do what you did. And, I told him my reasons why. And I'm like, I want to walk away in one piece. I don't want to, cat fight with anybody. I'm not going to, knock down, drag out this thing. It would have been 3 years with all the businesses that we had. We would have had to get forensic accountants. And I'm a fighter that is not a fighter when it comes to people. And I just believe, you've got to hold those people that are important to you. No matter what they do, forgiveness is the biggest thing. I'm never emotional.
Yeah,
Sorry.
you better stop because you're getting ready to make me cry on TV.
It's
And I don't
just,
do that.
this family stuff on my dad's anniversary today. And, I think about it all the time, but today's, my whole family is putting stuff on Facebook. So it kind of got me into this from the start today.
Well,
Oh man.
thank
But
you for
even Randy, my heart sunk when I heard the story of him crashing. He was drag racing. And no matter what we ever went through, somebody that you love, you don't ever want to see anything bad happen to them. I don't ever wish harm on anybody. And I think being a fighter, I think I probably would have been a better fighter if I was meaner. But my compassion and my love for people is, I think, what kept me from being an even greater fighter. I don't have that. I love to fight. I love the competition. I love the physicalness of it. And I'm tough as nails, but you have to have that extra little bit of just raw viciousness. And I think I was missing that. And, I'm friends with all my exes. They're all going to have a special place in my heart. I don't fight with people. If there's family conflict, I'm usually the one that goes in and tries to resolve it. So
that's God speaking through you.
Yeah,
Truly is.
it truly is. And I feel like I've had that in me since a little girl, because I had a lot to work through. And I see how other people hold on to tragedy, hold on to arguments or anger or bitterness or resentfulness and divorces. We all know how nasty divorces get. I just don't have that nastiness in me. And, even with my children's father, I'm not nasty with anybody. I just refuse to be like that. People that do that, I don't know if they realize it, but the saying goes, it's like you drinking the poison daily and hoping that they'll die, and why would anybody want to do that? If I can show an example by loving them, that says more than fighting with them. Randy told me it meant a lot for me to reach out to him right away. He had a heart attack a few years ago. I called right away. And as soon as they transported him here to Vegas, I was, at the hospital right away to see him, spend some time with him. So that's what people need to wake up and realize. That's what's going to get people united and all of us as humanity, closer to our goals that we need to be doing instead of tearing each other apart.
Well, we're associated with Creation for Cause, and that's how we're going to conquer homelessness here in Las Vegas, is just by loving everybody, right? Loving them, letting them know that they're being loved. And that's how we will overcome. So thank you for your openness and your vulnerability. It is 45 minutes past the hour. Are we supposed to do a sponsorship?
We can do one, but I want to go to Lloyd first.
Okay.
After listening to you when you said you weren't mean enough, there is a difference between meanness and resilience. I happen to be one of those people with an extremely low threshold of pain. When I catch a cold, I am bedridden for 3 days. I am the world's biggest baby. I
That's when
assure
guys
you.
don't have kids.
That's
Those are tough jobs for us.
Okay. So when you sit there and say you weren't mean enough, I can accept that. But there is a story about your resilience, which I absolutely positively insist that you tell. And when you compare that with my own experience where a cold can sideline me for weeks, tell me about fighting through the broken back incident. This is amazing to me.
Well, I had the broken back that I fought through, and then I had my back broken before I went to the fight. And then I broke my jaw in my first pro fight, which I was the promoter of as well. I put it on at the Thomas and Mack here, and I was the co-main event and broke my jaw in the first punch. And I was helping to lobby the commission to get rules changed for women because the girls used to fight three three-minute rounds, and I wanted it to be equal to men. So my fight was one of the first ones that was 5 minutes. And I break my jaw in the first punch of the fight. So I was like, I'll be damned if I'm not going to fight for 15 minutes because I got to prove a point here. But yeah, I grew up, growing up on the ranch, and my dad was tough. We'd get injured all the time. And he was like, I don't care. We got to get the cows in, go get your horse. I broke my leg one time pretty bad, and it was storming, and we had to get the cows in, and broken leg and all,
But you had a fight with a broken back. You broke your back before the fight, right?
Yeah.
And then you fought.
I'm not one to pull out of a fight. If I
You
find that
fought
contract,
with a broken back.
I never did get it fixed. It goes out on me every 3 or 4 months, and I'm in the bodybuilding world now. So, yeah, it doesn't slow me down.
I'm kind of with Lloyd on this one because
I have to ask my wife to turn the remote for me when I've got a cold because it's too painful to hit the buttons.
Listen, ranch kids are built different.
I'm sorry. I'll turn it back over to you, Jimmy. I just had to know. It bothered me to no end. I had to know.
Well, take a lesson.
Well, we're not going to get into who's worse, me or Lloyd, as far as being a baby. I think I got stories, but I'm not going to share them today. So, but before we get going too good, and I got a couple of other things that I want to talk to you with, it's time for our sponsor. And this week's sponsor, as it is usually this week or for time being, is our community. We are trying to grow our community. It's thriving. We have trainings every Thursday. And it's a podcast community, but you need a lot of things to be able to run your podcast. You need to be able to run business. Your mindset should be right. You got to be able to brand. You got to be able to market. There's all sorts of tools that you use. But we also have lots of leaders in there where we spend our time in there teaching, growing, learning, and encouraging each other. So it's a great community. It's $20 a month. We have some benefits in there where you can get rid of that $20 a month. It's really easy, and people are making money in our community. So go check it out. It's at www.podcastexcellenceacademy.com. Jimmy?
Can we take Dale's question?
Yes. That was my next thing. I was going to go through all the questions that people came in because the people are engaging with you, Kim.
That's awesome.
This is a great show. So Dale had a few things. Let me get back to my screen. But right now he's saying that he admires you giving your heart to people around you and what you do. And what do you do to help recharge your batteries?
I definitely unplug with my dogs. Now I love to be in nature, and with the heat as hot as it is here, we go early, and I have 4 dogs, a German Shepherd and 3 Belgian Malinois. So they need a lot of exercise. They got a lot of energy. And we just go hit the mountain, and, I'm out there and just watching them have fun. And it's kind of my way to unplug. I love doing research. I'm still in love with learning. And even that can be pretty heavy sometimes. So I have to unplug from that. And I always go back to nature. And even in the mornings, if I only have a little bit of time, I sit outside. I have chickens in my backyard.
Wow.
And I put chairs in there in the chicken coop. So I drink my coffee out there and I just listen to my chickens make their little noises in the morning. And that's just my little time that I need to get the day started on the right foot.
No, I love it. And Dale says that you also got him also. He was probably crying just like the rest of us.
And I never cry. You guys are the only people that ever see me cry. It never happens.
Yeah, I'm the same way, but man, you got me today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the next one is Vicky. You know what, Vicky? Thank you for watching and engaging and coming in.
Yes.
So we really
this
appreciate
is my little
it.
sister.
Ah,
She's like you. She's beautiful, and she makes this comment about grit here. She has a lot of grit. She's been through a lot. She's a great mom, a great wife. I won't give her age, but she looks like she's 27, and she's not. Hey,
So yeah, she says, love this woman's grit and compassion, all in and one great soul. And I have to agree. With her. I've
Thank
been
you.
very moved with your journey, your story today, and just your overall energy. And I think I'm really good at tapping into figuring that out. And your heart value is super incredible. You have a great heart value, and it shows in just some of the stories that you told, as far as walking away from your marriages and not wanting to be in that type of fight. I understand that energy more than you know. So I'm just really grateful that you came and talked to us.
oh, thank you. Yeah, I think if that's one thing I could encourage people to do better at, everybody could do better. It's communication and to love more, and especially when kids are involved, the kids are the only ones that get hurt. Nobody ever puts themselves in their shoes and, how do they feel? So I never wanted to create that environment where it was nasty and the kids feel torn or, they grow up in that harsh environment. I just wanted them to be happy and feel loved and think they had a great dad. And, it's just, you get more bees with honey. I don't understand why everybody just goes to nastiness. Yes, it hurts. People get hurt and they get angry, but everybody needs to realize, like you were saying, financial troubles, marital troubles, it's not the end of the world. Nothing is the end of the world. The good thing relating to fighting, like jujitsu, there's always a way out. You get in these predicaments, and that teaches you as well. There's always an answer. There's always a way out. It's kinetic chess. So it's like, do you know one more move than they do? If it comes down to it's back and forth, do you know one more move that's going to get you out of that situation than they do? So you gotta be smart.
Yeah, you have told us a lot about your life and how you've gotten here. I also know you to be a visionary, and you're an entrepreneur. So what recommendation do you have to others in the audience that would like to flip from being an employee to going out and doing something on their own and being an entrepreneur?
I would say having self-confidence and not being afraid of anything. That's one thing. My whole life, I've never had any fear. I don't know if it's being a ranch kid, grew up in the mountains. Like I fear nothing. Sharks, maybe, But why couldn't you do it? People doubt, and right away that doubt seeps in, and that little tiny voice is telling you can't. Well, what about this? What about that? What about, there's going to be a lot of what abouts. I started these businesses, and when I was with Randy, and I was like, I'm gonna do a clothing line. Our last name's Couture. We got to do it. And he's like, what do you know about a clothing line? You don't know anything about clothing. I'm not even a fashionista. I don't even care what I'm wearing. And I go, I don't know, but I'm going to figure it out. You got the last name Couture. Let's do it. Again, it was at the beginning of MMA going mainstream. I'm like, we got to do a clothing line for athletes, for fighters, And it started there and moved into a suit line. And, eventually we're in 11 major retailers. So you just tackle something you're passionate about. I have always said, if I come up with an idea and it actually gives me goosebumps every time I talk about it, I know I'm onto something.
Mhm.
You got to follow the goosebumps, right? And if you don't get goosebumps, then you need to start finding things that's going to give you them, because I can always tell I have a great idea when I get goosebumps. And it's like, it's that little spark inside you that's pushing you to just jump off the cliff. Just do it. You're going to fly.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that failed. There's a lot of things that went wrong, and there's quick fixes. I don't sit there and go, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? I'll fix it. You learn how to adapt and how to fix things. You know, I'm a ranch kid. You just are always fixing things. So, yeah, no fear. And they say if you chase something that you're passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. And that was the fitness industry for me to this day. I love training and coaching people. I love the gym atmosphere. I love being in it myself because my athletes now push me, and so I'll find myself, falling behind or getting too busy, and then they start pushing me. So it's a good environment. It's positive, and you're helping people's lives.
Kobe?
Yeah, no, I'm going to go back and thank a lot of the people that came into the comments, our usual regulars, Bonafide. Thanks, Vicky, Dale. We love you guys, and thanks for coming in. I'm going to do just a quick, make sure you're liking, sharing, subscribing. If you have any questions or if you have any guest ideas or any show ideas, communicate with us, engage with us, help us grow. We love bringing you people just like this. She's incredible. And I guarantee you that she's helped a lot of people in our network.
She has. And Kim, I know you're not into the shameless self-promotion piece, but you are a fitness instructor. You do still run your gym. Is there anything that you'd like to say or share with the audience as far as fitness or being a bikini fitness person or anything like that?
Well, I'm still at Extreme Couture. I went back last year, and we no longer run it. Randy gave it to his son, Ryan. So Ryan and his wife are doing a great job running the gym now. And I'm just there for an hour a day. I teach a group bodybuilding class from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. and anybody's welcome to come check it out. And then I do privates whenever people book them. I can be available anytime. I teach early in the morning. I have a couple of private clients that I go to their house and train them. And then I work from home. But if you want to follow the gym life, it's on Instagram at Kim's Fight Fit, and I spell it KIMZ Fight Fit. And I've just never been a big self-promoter. I love promoting the gym. I love promoting Randy and all of our fighters. I just never really pushed myself to be out there. I guess I'm still a little bashful in that sense. I like building other people up. But yeah, anybody's available to reach out, stop by the gym, check it out. I still teach MMA stuff too. I have some boys that are hockey players that I'm teaching MMA to. So we have fun there.
Yeah, and you might have another one. One of our regulars, Mr. Mo Johnson, Studio Talk. He says he needs to get in the gym. LOL. Yes, you do. Yeah. And he said this was an amazing episode from clothing to athletic. He also has his clothing line. So, thank you.
That's awesome.
Great. Lloyd, any parting words?
As I am apt to do in completely disregarding the entire conversation, I have unilaterally decided to change Kim's name from Sugar Free to Common Sense.
Common Sense, Kim?
I don't understand why they call it common sense when it is one of the least common things on the planet. For some reason, there doesn't seem to be a lot of it. But it doesn't matter whether you know anything about the subjects you were talking about or you didn't know a thing. Listening to you describe the things that you've not only experienced, but the lessons learned and the advice, it's the most common sense we've heard in a long time. And like the audience and like my partners, I salute you, and I welcome the opportunity to meet you in person at some time and get to know you better.
Likewise.
Thank you for coming on the show.
Awesome. And with that, you inspired a lot of our audience, and we really appreciate that. And thank you. And hopefully we can have you back on the show again sometime in the future to kind of catch back up. We like to do that.
You better come back. I have a whole list of questions.
Oh, we got to do part two. Part two.
Absolutely.
To be continued.
And as far as names, if Kim Possible wasn't already taken, then that would be a really good name for you. So anyway, thank you so much for being on our show, for coming out on relatively short notice. We thank you for that. And you are absolutely everything that we hoped and expected that you were going to be.
Oh,
So
I appreciate that. Thank you.
very, very much.
And with that, thank you guys for joining us. This is Great Employees Matter, greatness, excellence, and motivation. So make sure you check us out every Tuesday. Go check out some of the previous videos, and we'll see you next week. Remember to
Always
like and
be
share.
a gem.